Roger, Crazy Joe has lost it completely. I think that he's afraid that perhaps an investigation into that dead intern might turn up some skeletons in his closet. Why else would Crazy Joe be acting like such a lunatic?
Because he's like a lover spurned. Look, there was a time when Joe Scarborough was sucking up to Donald Trump like there was no tomorrow, playing golf at his golf courses, visiting Mar-a-Lago. Mika was once very, very influential. It was Mika who recommended Dina Habib Powell, the CFR globalist Bush Quisling, who's the #2 person under H.R. McMaster. You wonder, how could such a person work in a Trump White House? But we learned that Mika recommended her for the job. But the real thing here is that Joe is very bitter. Joe, in his entire congressional career, dreamed of being president, said he told his young Confederates he would ultimately run for president. And then Donald Trump comes along, his friend, becomes elected president. And then, believe it or not, Joe thinks that he should be selected for vice president. Yes, over Mike Pence, over Chris Christie, over all the other potential candidates. And then he's embittered when he's not. And he's acted childish since then. And this is just the continuation of a spat. I mean, Joe is, Joe is an acquired taste, to say the least.
You're telling me that Crazy Joe is that unhinged and delusional? He really thought he should be vice president?
This is all about jealousy. He very seriously thought Trump should pick him for vice president because he's Joe Scarborough. I mean, he has,
Who? Nobody knows who that is. Nobody knows who Joe Scarborough is.
Well, not in Joe's mind, in any event. But these kind of brainless attacks. Look, you're going to see this fall apart quickly because I really believe the president's lawyers are not serving him well. They have a much too laid back. They're much too trusting of the special counsel. This fellow Ty Cobb, who evidently stole his name from some baseball player, has a theory that if you just give everything you have, all your records and all your books and all the testimony they want, that the innate fairness and the decency of Robert Mueller will lead him to conclude that no laws have been broken. It's a completely naive view that misunderstands the partisan enmity for Donald Trump, the hatred, the burning hatred of the political establishment, and what is very clearly going to be a two-staged effort to try to undo what they couldn't do at the ballot box. They seek nothing more than the removal of Donald Trump because he threatens their cozy little stranglehold on power. Those who were bred to lead the country, the Yaleys and the Harvard graduates, how have they been doing for the last 30 years? Things going great? Lots of jobs? No, they've given us illegal wars. They have eroded our civil liberties. They have plunged us into debt. They have frittered away our advantages in trade deals. Now, and they tell us that Trump is an idiot and that they should run the country.
It's unbelievable. And I have a question for Roger on the other side. You're not going to want to miss it. This is The War Room.
Welcome back. You're on The War Room with your hosts, Roger Stone and Owen Schroyer. Something incredible happened today. I was working the phones very hard, working my sources in the Trump administration and in the Fifth Estate, the media, and trading information and preparing to break some big news on this show. And our internet went down literally minutes before we were to log on to The War Room. And we couldn't figure out whether the problem was ours, but we learned that there was a power outage, and this one block in the middle of New York City in an undisclosed location went out. So the NSA boys are trying to do their job, but we're connecting to you by telephone because I think the president's in grave danger. I really think these lawyers and his staff, the generals, are sleepwalking him to the gallows. There is no question whatsoever that Mueller, based on the fact that he's brought process-related charges against Flynn and Manafort and Gates and Papadopoulos, is prepared to bring such a frivolous process charge against the president, such as obstruction or perjury. Stunning news today that Mueller has subpoenas Trump's financial records from Deutsche Bank. it is well known that he has been seeking closely held private financial documents from the president from any source possible, as well as looking at bank records relating to real estate transactions 20 years ago. Where is the Russian collusion, you ask? Well, under this absence of a special counsel law that we're operating, he is complete free reign. There's no governance. There's no oversight. Under the old law, a special prosecutor had to go to the attorney general to get written permission for the expansion of a probe into new areas. But not here. We're far afield. So, unfortunately, we saw a good man brought to his knees, General Flynn. Flynn threw in the towel when President Trump threw him over the side. 10 days ago, the mainstream media got it wrong. We at InfoWars got it right. It was Trump who broke with Flynn. Flynn did not break with Trump. Flynn did not go over the side and turn on his commander-in-chief. He was thrown to the wolves. Perhaps the president and his advisors believe the wolves will be happy with the carcass of Mr. Flynn, but I think there is little chance of that. The partisanship, the many conflicts, and the operational tactics show me that Mueller is committed to bringing some charge against the president. And then, of course, if the president sustains that, the plan B for the political establishment is a 25th Amendment play, a coup. That requires a majority of the cabinet plus the vice president. Breaking story today by McKay Coppins tells us that Pence was open to a draft by party leaders in the aftermath, the immediate aftermath of the NBC grab their you-know-what tape by Billy Bush. That jibes with a report earlier that when candidate Trump called Vice President candidate Pence, right afterwards, Pence would not take his call. Sent him a note saying that he didn't want to talk to him at this time. He was still sorting out the issues. So Pence might be enticed. This takes a majority of the cabinet. Now, the problem is there are a few Trump loyalists in the Trump cabinet. There's a lot of swamp creatures in there. I wouldn't expect Rex Tillerson, after he got thrown out, revealed first here on InfoWars, the first national news outlet to report he would be gone by the end of the year. And, Owen, he will. So we're in a situation in which the establishment will ramp up these Trump is crazy stories. You've seen more and more and more of them, talking about his erratic nature and so on. Corey Lewandowski did not help this with his book, in which he depicts the president in a wild light. Very harmful, I think, and feeding the mainstream media theme, which they will get to a fevered pitch if that's necessary. So my theory here is Mueller is going to shoot. He may shoot and take down our president. He may shoot and miss. But if the president survives that, he needs to wake up and smell the coffee. The political establishment is committed to the removal of a man who has record stock markets, unemployment at record low levels, booming housing market, real signs that America is back, but he threatens their power. Owen?
Roger, my question for you is, how many people on Trump's team even realize the war they're in? Two of the names that I would suspect are aware of the war and the danger that Trump was in are Michael Flynn and Steve Bannon. Of course, both no longer in there having Trump's back all the time now. So I'm curious, who on Trump's team really still has the president's back, or better yet, who on Trump's team, in his cabinet, in his administration, are even aware of the war and the reality of the war that they're currently in?
I think they have the president pretty tightly controlled in a cocoon. A close friend of the president who was with him several days ago, spent about 2 hours with him, told me it's like he's in a sealed bubble. They show him only the polls that are favorable. They show him no polls that are unfavorable. They don't show him any stories that would upset him. He was blissfully unaware of Jeff Sessions' obsession with outlawing marijuana in the 29 states where it's been legalized. He was unaware that the Obama NSA illegally surveilled 30,000 Americans in an act of political espionage in violation of the Constitution and the law. It's amazing how the generals now have cut off all of his old friends and supporters. You notice that after he went to Palm Beach, where he had kind of run of the place and saw a lot of his old contacts and friends and supporters, shortly thereafter he posted the incredible videos of the Islamists beheading the Dutch man on crutches. He also got very feisty with Joe Scarborough. Could be that he heard about the dead intern over cocktails at Mar-a-Lago.
So you think Trump just needs more room to breathe right now?
Well, I think that they're trying to lull him into a false sense of confidence. His lawyers have told him that he will have a letter from the special counsel clearing him shortly. Now they're saying by the end of the year. Well, it was by Thanksgiving, and then it was by Christmas. Now it's the end of the year. Mr. Cobb has set unrealistic expectations in his client, to say the least. There will be no letter forthcoming. Very clearly, Mike Flynn is going to finger someone. He was instructed to do this by someone. We don't know who that is today. But that's why I think there's another shoe to drop here.
Roger, what do you make of what's come out about Peter Strzok, not just his anti-Trump bias and the messages he's sending around, but the fact this guy's had his fingertips all over the Clinton email investigation, the Clinton interviews, the softening of James Comey's, looking into potential perjury and charges against him? I mean, what do you make of Peter Strzok behind the scenes?
He's typical of the young stormtroopers that they're using in this operation. What about the tactics of this fellow, Andrew Weismann? During the Enron investigation, he locked a 30-year-old executive in solitary confinement for 2 weeks to break him and make him say what he wanted him to say. That's extraordinary. And when a complaint went to the New York bar, it was just routinely dismissed, which shows that the justice system in this country is very flawed.
Yeah, and this is the same Weissman that had Manafort's home raided.
Well, I believe the fellow who was fired, Stortz, I guess his name is the agent to whom Mike Flynn allegedly lied.
It's amazing that this guy, but see, Flynn gets the charges for lying, but Clinton still gets to walk, even though it was the same guy doing the interview. Talk about a double standard. Last segment with Roger Stone on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. You're at the War Room with your hosts, Roger Stone and Owen Schroyer, and we're laying out the incredible threat facing our president as the establishment tries to gather up all their power and their resources to do something that they couldn't do at the ballot box, remove Donald Trump. And as I was just telling Owen, I think there is a plan A, that's an attack by Mueller and result in impeachment. Plan B, a 25th Amendment play. And if that fails, there's a new problem on the horizon. It is widely thought that Utah U.S. Senator Orrin Hatch, who recently came out for the legalization of cannabis, marijuana, and a good man, one of the soldiers of the Reagan Revolution, will retire. And sources very high up in the Church of Latter-day Saints tell me that Mitt Romney will be a candidate for that seat. Now, why, you would ask, would someone at his age and a former governor want to stoop to being a U.S. Senator? Well, I am told he will spend no time in the Senate. He will immediately launch a challenge from the Senate against President Trump within the Republican primaries and caucuses. Romney regrets not running in 2016 because he believed shrewdly that Jeb Bush could not be stopped. He has always resented Trump's getting the prize that eluded him, so much so that Trump was able to play rope-a-dope with him over the Secretary of State's office. But now the president is undertaking a charm offensive to convince Orrin Hatch that he must serve one more term. That would, of course, thwart the Romney-Trump takedown plan. the first place you're going to hear any of this is InfoWars. Oh, you'll read that Mitt Romney's thinking of running for the Senate, and you'll read that Orrin Hatch is being importuned by the president to run again, but you won't hear the backstory, which is this is the nascent Romney presidential bid to topple Donald Trump if he is still standing after the onslaught of the establishment in the form of prosecutor Mueller and treachery, perhaps, in his own cabinet. Owen?
Well, it's just funny to me that failed politicians like Jeff Flake and Mitt Romney, in their hubris, think that they still have any political, leverage or any sort of, public ability to sway public opinion. You've got Mitt Romney, who says no majority is worth losing our honor, our integrity. And then you've got Jeff Flake. This one just came out. I don't know if you've heard this, Roger. Jeff Flake just donated $100 to Doug Jones for U.S. Senate and tweeted out country over party. So
I don't find
Mitt
that.
Romney and Jeff Flake, I mean, just total failures.
That's hardly an act of courage. Mr. Flake has already announced his retirement. Trump is right. He left the race because he would have been beaten in the Republican primary. If Donald Trump had endorsed John McCain's opponent in the primary in 2016, John McCain would not be a thorn in his side. Kelly Ward, then in the state Senate, challenged McCain and ran a very credible race against him with no resources. A Trump endorsement would have put her over the top, but unfortunately, the candidate Trump was talked out of it by his campaign advisors, including Paul Manafort, Jared Kushner, and others. So that, I thought, was an egregious mistake. They let the weasel live. They could have ended his checkered career. He's getting increasingly zany, angry, bitter, melting down in public, red-faced tirades, screaming at people. People had enough of his abuse. I thought the way he treated that Fox reporter was disgraceful very recently.
Well, it's just amazing because I figure, and I've been saying this, the louder they scream against Trump, the more they try to rattle the cage against Trump, the more they're trying to hide.
Well, the problem, of course, is that in the cocoon, you don't know what the president sees and hears. I think that he has now as a comfort level with his handlers. This is almost like Stockholm Syndrome. And Kelly and Mattis and McMaster form a military triumvirate, and they believe it is their duty to have an orderly transition of power. The part of Al Haig is being played here by by H.R. McMaster. Haig understood his mission was to end the Nixon presidency as cleanly as possible, and he walked the old man to the gallows, in essence, arranging all the terms of his resignation and surrender. And I don't believe the soldiers, all of whom rose career-wise during Obama. A very wise general named Jones, retired in Las Vegas, Nevada, told me that no general or major officer who had risen during the Obama years could be trusted because essentially they promoted the globalists and their minions. Conservative or Republican officers, or I should say officers who had more conservative personal viewpoints, were winnowed out and retired. So just because someone has stars on their chest, we should not think there is no politics in the military. And the president, as much as he admires our fighting men and women, may not understand that he has an asp in the bosom.
Yeah, and I would just stand to reason that really it's impossible to not inject your personal politics into any of this, because if you're a thinking individual, if you're a thinking man or woman, you're going to have politics. I mean, that's just natural, especially if you're in the military. You're going to have political beliefs. But, Roger, what does it tell you? Not just that Mitt Romney and Jeff Flake are anti-Trump. Okay, that's one thing. And then they want to go down and they want to be anti-Roy Moore and say, oh, Roy Moore is a bad guy. Look at these accusations, mind you, accusations. But I think it really shows who Romney and who Flake are, that not just do they want to not go with Roy Moore, which is fine. Okay, you want to go with not Roy Moore because you don't like these accusations. Okay, that's fine. But they're choosing to go with Doug Jones.
Well, as you know, a write-in candidate jumped into that race. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to get him any votes whatsoever. But formerly, where did he work? He worked for General John Kelly in the Army. Kelly even left his fingerprint on that.
But doesn't it tell you that for people like Romney and Flake, they're not loyal to their policies? Do they even really have any policies, or are they totally controlled and now being told to go against Trump? Because if they were loyal to their policies, there's no way they would be supporting Doug Jones. You can't support a Doug Jones who supports abortion and open borders and everything else that comes along with being a good liberal. So they aren't even loyal to their policies. I mean, if anything, I'm looking at Jeff Flake and Romney today and saying, you are more of a nothing, a shill, a shallow piece of dirt than I already thought you were.
Well, I could not agree more. Look, we have to hope that the president does the only thing he can do, which is very, very clear. I don't know which one of his lawyers or advisors told him it's inappropriate for him to talk to anyone at the Justice Department. That is false. He has the absolute authority to order the Attorney General to appoint a special counsel. He could even name the person, in my opinion. The failure to do so would require a resignation from Jeff Sessions. This would be a direct order, just like Nixon's direct order in the Saturday Night Massacre. And we cannot, if the Attorney General recuses himself or resigns because he wouldn't carry out the order, it would fall to the number 2 man, Rod Rosenstein. But since Rosenstein would be the subject of a Uranium One investigation, I would argue that he has to step aside, meaning the decision would go to the Solicitor General. It is time to have a special prosecutor in Uranium One. It is time to proceed against Mr. Comey, Mr. Mueller, Mr. McCabe, Mr. Rosenstein. They knew there were crimes being committed. They let the deal go forward regardless. And then, of course, Bill and Hillary, the actual perps of the deal. That is the way the president can vanquish his enemies. He does not have to hire Mueller. Mueller could not survive while under federal investigation. It doesn't pass the smell test.
Well, it's all there, and Roger Stone breaks it down for us on the War Room every day. Thanks for coming on with us again, Roger. We'll talk with you tomorrow.
Thanks, and let me go talk to the NSA now about why we have no Skype.
All right. Well, they're already listening, so you don't even need to turn an object on. They're already listening to you, Roger. And we'll get more from Roger tomorrow, and I'm going to get more into this deep state war going on with spies.